To get started, you want to make your slip knot and then insert your hook. And instead of doing a foundation chain, I'm going to do a chainless foundation in half double crochet. So you want to chain 2 and then wrap the yarn around your hook and then work back into the first chain. And then pull the yarn through, chain 1 and then chain through all of them. And here I'm adding stitch markers just to mark my place because it can be a bit difficult to work it out at the end on a chainless foundation, but you don't have to do this, it's just what I'm doing. I'm putting these on because I'm going to be working around once I get to the end of this row, so I want to know that I'm going into the right place. With that done, I'm going to continue making my half double crochet foundation chain, and for me that's going to be 36 stitches, but it depends how many stitches you need for the size of this that you're making for, but it is multiples of 6. So once you think you've got your foundation as long as you want it to be, just check to make sure it does fit around your wrist. And if you're satisfied that the fit is okay, then you want to do a slip stitch into the other side of your row. This fastens both sides together. And this is where the stitch markers come in handy for me. So go into your first chain and then pull your yarn through and then through the other loop. And then make sure that it's flat all the way around. And then next chain 2 and then double crochet, half double crochet all the way around. And I'm using the stitch marker again. Here you can use these if you feel you need them. You don't have to if you're confident that you won't lose your place. And once you've completed your second row, you can once again slip stitch into the beginning. And you'll end up with something that looks like this. Now you can start your V-stitch pattern, so you want to chain 3, and this is going to form one half of your first or last V-stitch depending on your point of view, and the other half is going to be done at the end. And then you want to skip 2 stitches and do a treble crochet into the third. And then if you're using stitch markers, you can add your stitch marker here. And then you want to chain 1 and then do another treble into the same stitch. And then you want to skip 2 stitches again and then treble crochet into the third. and again chain 1 and then treble into the same one, and again skipping 2 stitches and working into the third. You're going to do a treble crochet, a chain and a treble into the same one, and you want to do this until you get to your last stitch. Once you get to your last stitch, you want to work into the bottom of the third stitch again, but this time only doing 1 treble crochet. And then you want to chain 1 and then slip stitch into the beginning of your row to join. And then you can remove your stitch marker, and you're going to end up with something that looks like this to start with. So to work your next row, you're going to do pretty much the same thing, but this time you're going to be working into the gap in the middle of the V. So again, you've got your first single treble crochet, and then you're doing a treble crochet into the gap of the V rather than into a stitch, then chain, and then treble crochet into the gap again. And then you just repeat this pattern all the way around into the V's. And once you get to the end of that row, once again just working into the V, you just do 1 treble crochet and then chain and then slip stitch into the beginning of your row. Then you'll get something that looks like this. So you're going to repeat this for as many rows as you want before you do your increases for your thumb. So that'll depend on the size of the hand you're making for. So once you've got the first part as long as you want it to be, good idea to try it on and just check that it will fit comfortably over. And you want to make sure as well that it will go over the biggest part of your hand. So now you want to start working increases for the thumb. So it's a good idea to test how many stitches you're going to need for your thumb. This will vary depending obviously on the size of the hand that you're making for, so you can't necessarily follow the amount that I use, but I'm working 5 here. So I'm marking the spot where I'm going to need to do an increase, and then I need 5 for the thumb, so I'm going to mark it on the other side. Well, I'm not going to mark it, but I'm going to remember it on the other side because it's basically equaling it so that the seam will run down the centre. So for me, it's going to be 1 V stitch as normal, and then for the next stitch I'm going to do what I've decided to call a W, because it's basically a V stitch with an extra post. So you do your treble crochet, you chain, your next treble crochet in the same spot, and then instead of moving on you want to chain again and then do another treble crochet into the same spot. And I know W stitch isn't a thing, but basically it does look a bit like a W. So then you want to work the rest of your stitches as normal, it's just V stitches, until you get to the point that you've marked at the other side. And when you get there, you're going to do another W. Once you get to the point you mark, once again you want to do an extra treble crochet to form a W instead of a V. So 1 treble crochet, chain, another treble crochet, and then chain again, and then work another treble into the same space. and then you want to mark the inside, so you want the side that's closest to the thumb to do all your further increases, and the opposite on the other side. So for your second row of increases, you're going to be working into the first half of your W, and again you're going to be making another W. And as you go around to the other side, it's going to be the second part of your W, if that makes sense. So here remember to do your 3 trebles. So that's a W in the first half of your first W, and then in the second half you're just doing a regular V-stitch. And then until you get to your stitch marker, it's going to be V-stitches as normal. So once you get to the W on the other side, you want to do the opposite of what you did the first time. So you want to do a regular V in the first half of your W. And then in the next half of your W, you want to do your next W stitch. So you're doing your treble, chain, treble again in the same space, chain, and a treble again in the same space. And then once again you can mark your space if you wish to, and then just finish off as normal. So once you've done a couple of increases, you'll see that it's starting to move slightly out at the side. This is what's going to make the space for your thumb. So from then on, if you need to do more increases, just continue doing increases until you've got it to the size that you want it to be. This will vary depending on the size of your hand, as I say, so you'll just have to experiment with this until you know it's the right size for you. So once you've done as many increases as you need, you'll end up with something that looks like this. So you see it goes out of one side just to accommodate for the thumb. And now you can work the thumb rows. So you're going to be doing this at the same point that you did your increases before. So you're going to switch over once you get to the first part of your W. So you want to chain 3, as usual, do your first V-stitch, and then working into the first half of your W, let's do a V-stitch, but then instead of continuing into the second half, you want to turn it round and go into the back of the other W, which you will probably have marked. So work another V-stitch into there, and then continue round as normal. And then working into the beginning, just doing one treble, a chain, and slip stitching into the beginning of your smaller row. And after you've done your first row, it's a good idea to just test that it will fit comfortably over your thumb. If you're satisfied that it's a nice comfortable fit, you can then work the rest of the rows you need for your thumb. So once you've done as many rows as you want for your thumb, you can just slip stitch through and then fasten off. And you'll end up with something that looks like this. And again, how many rows you use here will vary according to your size, so it's not necessarily going to be the same as mine. So here once again you can test to see if it will fit if you wish. So with this done, you want to add the wool to make the part that's going to go over your fingers. So going through the backs of your W stitches, here I'm going to commit a bit of a crochet sin, but the reason for this is if you don't seal it up properly here, you can end up with a little bit of a gap. So even though most people would recommend the gains, I am going to tie a knot here to join the wool. This just makes it a little bit tighter. Again, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, it's just what I do to fasten up that slight gap. And with that knotted in place, I'm going to weave the tail end in now just to save me having to do it later. I'm going to weave it across the backs of the rows with the crochet hook. And with that woven in, you can start working the rest of your glove. So here I want to go through the W stitch and just pull a loop through and then chain 3. Then moving to the next V stitch, I'm going to do a V stitch as normal. And you want to repeat this until you get back to the other end. Once you get to the end, do one treble crochet, chain, and then slip stitch into the beginning again. After this, you're going to be working your V stitches as normal. When you get to the end of your second row, the bit that you're working for your last treble crochet looks slightly different, but just work it as though it's a normal V-stitch. And then after this, your rows are going to be as they normally would be all the way around. So just work V-stitch rows until you get the finger part of your glove as long as you want it to be. It wouldn't let me, but crap. Once you've got it as long as you want it, you can slip stitch and fasten off. And to weave your tail ends in, you're going to need a darning needle or yarn needle. But before you do that, you're going to want to fasten the beginning part of your glove. Because the half double crochet foundation chain isn't exactly symmetrical, it leaves a little bit of an awkward beginning. So take the tail end and then pull it through to form a loop, and then find the other end of the chain, pull your yarn through and slip stitch and fasten off. And this will tidy up that little bit of, I don't really know what to call it, but it fastens it a bit neater. Then you can turn your glove inside out and weave in your tail ends. And once you've done that, you can turn your glove the right way around again. And once you're finished, you'll end up with gloves that look like this. Now I know these gloves aren't identical, and I quite like it like that because the variegated wool makes it a little bit unusual. You can match it up if you want to, but you will lose a little bit of yarn. But I really like them when they don't quite match, but you can tell they belong together. Put it this way, nobody ever picks up my gloves and thinks that they belong to them. So I like it, but as I say, if you don't want to do it like that, you don't have to. But you'll basically end up with something that looks like this.